final we've had. Novak Djokovic claiming his 15th Grand Slam title, the first Grand Slam of the year, the Australian Open going Novak Djokovic's way, winning it in straight sets. Many expected it to be a high-five thriller, but in the end, Novak Djokovic giving Rafael Nadal no chance there in the middle, winning it out in 3 straight sets, 6-3. 6-2, 6-3, the straight, a match that got over inside 2 hours. The first set just dropping 1 point on his serve. That's the dominance that Novak Djokovic had on this particular outing there at the Rod Laver Arena. That's not all. This is the 3rd straight Grand Slam he's winning. He's followed it up first. He started off at Wimbledon, followed up with the US Open crown, and now winning his 7th Australian Open title, taking his all-time Grand Slam record now to 15 Grand Slam titles. Well, to get a perspective of what that particular outing was, why was it one-way traffic, why was Nadal nowhere in the picture in that big final, joining me in the studios to get a perspective on that big game between the two players there in the middle as Djokovic celebrates while Nadal ponders what's went wrong. Joining me in the studios is Gaurav Sethi this evening. Gaurav, good evening. Welcome to the show.
Hi.
Gaurav, many expected this contest to be, a high five, but in the end, it just seemed, or if you look at the scoreline, it looked like one-way traffic. Where did Djokovic have the edge, and where did Nadal blow it away?
And you're absolutely right. We felt before the match that this is going to be very close and in 5 games, 5 sets. And I think right from the word go, surprisingly, I think Nadal starting very nervy.
Okay.
He was very nervous at the start, and that gave Djokovic a great head start. Never looked back after that. He dominated every part of the game, whether it was return of serve, where he is strong, and even on his own serve. I think Nadal was just looking overpowered today.
Where do you feel was the difference? If you look at Nadal's game, he believed in playing 3 shots, completing that rally and getting that point. Did that, Djokovic idea of making him play, almost 5.5 shots there, change things for Nadal there in the middle?
I think it was the speed and the beauty of Djokovic's returns, which almost caught Nadal on the back foot. Nadal was serving very well, and he's upped his serve thanks to his new service action. His service is almost 10 miles faster than it was. But Djokovic also lifting his game and was almost rushing Nadal on his serves. The return was coming back so fast and at such an angle that Nadal was always rushed. And this is the first time in the Australian Open he faced that pressure on his serve. Earlier, if you saw, he just dominated on his serve, won very quickly on his service games, but not today. Djokovic, I think his returns today were much more superior than Nadal's serves.
Okay, if you look at that particular outing, the opening set, Nadal didn't look, he looked frosty there in the middle. He didn't look that, he's played many Grand Slam finals before. What was the reason that, he looked that frosty there in the middle in that opening exchanges itself?
I think when you're playing against an opponent like Djokovic, you've got to be on your A game. And he saw, I think, right at the start, Djokovic continuing where he left off in that semi-final, almost flawless tennis. Very few unforced errors, keeping the pressure. In fact, the interesting thing is on Djokovic on his own serve was again almost flawless. I saw some of the stats there. 80% serve on points won on the first serve, 82% on the second serve. And that's an amazing stat. Shows that it's almost impossible to break his serve. And Nadal hardly won any points. Forget about being close to breaking his serve.
If you look at that game, somewhere in the 3rd set, I think in the 5th or the 6th game, that is the first time that Nadal had a real chance of breaking Djokovic's serve. That was the dominance that Djokovic enjoyed this evening there at the Rod Laver Arena. Gaurav, when you look at the game that Djokovic brought today, did that take Nadal as well as you by surprise?
Yeah, absolutely. I think everyone was shell-shocked. You could see Nadal's camp there, his training staff and his coach.
Carlos Moya
was looking shell-shocked. I don't think he knew what had hit him. And actually, Nadal acknowledged it after the match, that today Djokovic just played at a different level. But I think it was very sporting of Nadal to acknowledge that.
Having said that, if you look at the 4 Grand Slams of the year, and this is that the first Grand Slam of the year, do you see now Djokovic one step in completing that full career slam there in one go? He's just one title away, the French Open.
Well, remember the next one is the French Open.
True.
And the king of clay, Nadal, I think will still be the favorite there. 11 French Open titles, It doesn't get any better. But I think on current form, if there is anyone who is going to challenge Nadal, it will be Djokovic. But in my books, it's still going to be Nadal, the king of clay, the favorite. With, I think, anyone who can challenge him, it will be Djokovic. Interesting that Federer has also said he's going to play the French Open, but I think that's a long shot. Federer's best chance is grass.
Okay, Federer's best chance is grass. We'll have to wait and watch how things pan out there. But, you know, when you look at this particular outing there, you know, two great men there in the middle. Many expected it to be, you know, as we talked before, it to be a 5-setter. But, you know, did you expect at any point of time, when we were closing, when we were going into that match, we didn't make a mention about that, you know, straight set victory. But did at any point of time, did you feel that it's going to be a three-set finish in this game?
I think no one could have betted for that. Even Djokovic himself couldn't have predicted that today. Such was his domination. And we were joking that Djokovic had said that he would have loved to buy tickets for this match if he had to. If he'd known the outcome, he definitely would have bought tickets.
Well, we'll leave that for another day. But at this point of time, let's slip into a break here. On the other side, we'll take a look at, you know, where things could have been different, where Nadal could have brought a bit more, you know, toughness to his game, a bit more intensity to his game, which would have made a lot more difference in this final outing. On the other side of this short break.
आपकी यात्रा के दौरान आपकी कार का इंजन जूझता है गर्मी से, स्लज से और घिसाव से। हराइए गर्मी को, स्लज को और घिसाव को सुरक्षा की ढाल से। सर्वो फ्यूचुरा G+ सिंथेटिक इंजन ऑयल, आपके कार इंजन की सुरक्षा ढाल, जो दे ईंधन में 2% की बचत भी। सर्वो फ्यूचुरा G+, इंडियन ऑयल की पेशकश।
Welcome back once again. We are discussing that post-match of that Australian Open men's singles final. What went right for Novak Djokovic? What terribly went wrong for Nadal there in the middle? Many expected things to be a totally different match. But in the end, it was just one-way traffic. Novak Djokovic stamping his class there at the Rod Laver Arena, giving Nadal no chance. The only time that Nadal had a chance was in the 6th game in the 3rd set, where, you know, he sensed an opening where he could break that Djokovic serve. Gaurav, when you look at the way things panned out, or the way, you know, Nadal played, did Nadal play badly, or did Djokovic was all over him?
I think it was more Djokovic today. It was just his domination. He would have taken on any player today in the world. But having said that, what Nadal could have done better was certainly at the start of the match, fewer unforced errors, extended the rallies. He was just too nervy and giving too many easy points for Djokovic. You know, broken in his very first service game. And that itself puts you on the back foot. And against Djokovic, you know, Djokovic will just swallow you if you give him the slightest opportunity.
Okay, do you feel somewhere that, you know, his serve let him down today because he expected that to come good? And, you know, right from the beginning, the opening service game, the second game that he served, he lost serve. And that's not all. In the second, he lost it twice. In the 3rd set, he again lost twice. His serve let him down today, from where, you know, you couldn't put the pieces together, you couldn't gather the pieces from there.
I think if you see, yes, certainly in the first set, his service was off. But second set onwards, Nadal was playing his A game.
Okay.
There's nothing wrong with his game. But Djokovic was just too good. The return of serve, outstanding. And at no point in the match, barring that one game where Nadal held the break point, did he put any pressure at all on Djokovic. And you know, Djokovic thrives in that situation. When there is no pressure, at one point it almost seemed he was toying with his opponent, which at this level is quite amazing.
Well, did that also catch you, you know, a bit by surprise, the way in which he was toying his opponent there in the middle? Because Nadal, you know, looked down and out right from, you know, the first point of this game to that end of this particular final. Yeah,
Djokovic was just growing in confidence, and I think, you know, he sensed victory. He knew it. It was on the cards, I think, pretty much after the first set. And Nadal's body language also was sagging. You know, it's unusual. Normally you see Nadal, the fighter, and coming back very strongly. But here you could see it was on the decline. But having said that, I think Nadal also was mentally reconciled that while this match was lost, for him it was a big psychological win. Coming back from a 6-month injury where almost he seemed to be out. And tennis pundits had written him off the circuit. To come back and reach the Australian final, full marks to him.
Well, that's what he's acknowledged there in the end, when he said that, I'm happy that I'm able to come back and play this tournament and survive here for 2 weeks. That's the big plus that he gathers from the Australian Open and, takes it forward to the clay court season.
Correct, absolutely. And I think full credit. And the way his fitness has come about, he's remodeled his serve. And now the good news for Nadal, of course, is the clay season will kick off. And there he's going to grow in confidence, build, and hopefully move on to his 12th French Open title, which will be one hell of a record.
Okay, one hell of a record is what we look at, whether Nadal can achieve it or not. But time for us to slip into another breather here, there. On the other side, we'll take a look at what was Djokovic. How was Djokovic different in this big final at the Rod Laver Arena? Stay tuned.
आपकी यात्रा के दौरान आपकी कार का इंजन जूझता है गर्मी से, स्लज से और घिसाव से। हराइए गर्मी को, स्लज को और घिसाव को सुरक्षा की ढाल से। सर्वो फ्यूचुरा G+ सिंथेटिक इंजन ऑयल, आपके कार इंजन की सुरक्षा ढाल जो दे ईंधन में 2% की बचत भी। सर्वो फ्यूचुरा G+, इंडियन ऑयल की पेशकश।
So it's Djokovic who's having that last laugh there at that Australian Open. They're getting that 7th title now, edging past Pete Sampras, getting Grand Slam number 15 under his belt. Gaurav, when you look at the dominance that Djokovic has managed after coming back from that injury and that hunger to win, does that make things a bit more interesting for Djokovic? Because now, the ice, the glitter in the eyes showed it. He's hungry for more. This is just the beginning.
Yes, sir, absolutely. And I think fast catching up. Both of them are with Federer at 20.
True.
Of course, Nadal at 17. But he's won 3 in a row now. The real challenge for him, and I think that will be the icing on the cake, is if he can win the French Open against Nadal. I think that will then break the back of Nadal, certainly. But for as far as Djokovic is concerned, it'll put him then in the driving seat, and he'll be a definite favorite to overtake Federer's record.
If you see that particular final, did you feel at any point of time, we spoke about that 6th game in the 3rd set when Nadal did sense, a chance to break Djokovic's serve. Other than that, do you feel somewhere Nadal could have done something differently in this game, which the outcome would have been different?
Very tough to say, because really Djokovic dominating every aspect of the game. Perhaps the only thing he could have done is throw in a few more drops or surprise his opponent by going to the net a little more often. But all that doesn't work if you're not playing your A game. Nadal today clearly wasn't playing his A game, and against an opponent who was playing flawless tennis, there's very little you can do in terms of tactics when you're dominated so much.
Okay. Somewhere did you feel that Nadal on the baseline too was somewhere, maybe 2 to 3 steps behind the baseline that he played? So the shots, the power that he generated, he was not able to, give that kind of a rasping, counter or a, fight back to Djokovic?
Absolutely. He was on the defensive. He was on the back foot. But all thanks to the aggressive play from Djokovic. Djokovic was generating so much power on his ground strokes, on his service returns. Even after a good first serve, suddenly Nadal was on the back foot. So, there was no question. And from there, you're just trying to recover and play defensive tennis. And that really played into the hands of Djokovic.
Gaurav, did at any point of time did you feel that Nadal was trying to do too much there in the final? He was not getting a footing, but then you're trying to do too much there. You're trying to play. You were trying to take those 50-50 calls. You make your margin of error was minimal, but then he was going for his shots and losing more there at the end of the day.
Yes, he was. But again, in that situation, you're forced to take risks. You remember that drop shot he hit.
True.
It was a sign of desperation. From the baseline, he was not in a position, but he just was hoping that the drop shot falls in. But that was just kind of summed up the match and Nadal's desperation.
Okay. Nadal's desperation is very much visible there in that particular outing. He never, the scoreline very clearly says that 6-3, 6-2, 6-3. But if you look at, the match in totality, Nadal was never able to get a footing in this particular, men's singles final. And that could be something that could trouble, Rafael Nadal as we move into that clay court season. But our final breather here, on the other side, we'll take a look at what has this Australian Open thrown open in terms of challenge, in terms of new hope that we could look forward to for the remainder of the season.
आपकी यात्रा के दौरान आपकी कार का इंजन जूझता है गर्मी से, स्लज से और घिसाव से। हराइए गर्मी को, स्लज को और घिसाव को सुरक्षा की ढाल से। सर्वो फ्यूचुरा G+ सिंथेटिक इंजन ऑयल, आपके कार इंजन की सुरक्षा ढाल, जो दे ईंधन में 2% की बचत भी। सर्वो फ्यूचुरा G+, इंडियन ऑयल की पेशकश।
Welcome back once again. A flawless final there. Just 9 unforced errors from Djokovic's racket there. And that is the story of this particular Australian Open. The manner in which he dominated that final, not many expected this kind of a fight back or this kind of raw power that Djokovic would bring to the table. Gaurav, were you surprised with that power that Djokovic brought there? Just 9 unforced errors in a final. You know, even though it's a 3-set game, but you know, just 9 unforced errors, which means no chance, even
Absolutely.
not even 10% there for Nadal to exploit or you know make some use of there in the final.
And he just took off from very left in the semi-final. 5 unforced errors there, but that was against Lucas Pouille, much lower ranked player from France, emerging player.
True.
But today it was against Nadal, and which is what makes this performance outstanding, really, from Djokovic. At a crunch situation and a Grand Slam final, against really arguably one of the best players in the world, to produce your best tennis, I think hats off to him.
Well, you know, if you look at, you know, both the players, the way in which they they thank the sponsors and they thank Melbourne as a host city, you know, do you now feel that this is one of the best Grand Slams in terms of the 4 Grand Slams that we see? This is the best Grand Slam, or at least on, you know, hard court surfaces?
It certainly is. I've had the pleasure of visiting all the Grand Slams, and I would say they all have their charm, their pluses. So very tough to say this is the best. But where it scores really is that it comes after a long break. There is a long break at the end of the season, and it heralds the start of a new season for tennis, and which is the new charm that it holds. It's all very well organized. And what is best about the Australian Open is that the fans are very knowledgeable. The Australians love their sport, they know tennis, and it's great to have a knowledgeable audience, and the players also, of course, love that.
Okay, you know, is that a surprise? Djokovic won the title, but the largest cheers were there for Rafael Nadal, even when the chips were down.
Yes, absolutely. I think that wasn't a surprise. As Yuki was also saying before the match, he was certainly a favorite from the heart. While the mind always said Djokovic will win, but I think he was the emotional favorite. And once again, the Aussies appreciate the fact that he's come back from adversity. They love a fighter, and that's what Nadal personifies.
Okay, the fighter in Nadal was personified there, and it was an interesting contest there finally at the end of the day. You know, when you have a final, there can be only one winner, and in the end it was, you know, Djokovic that had the last laugh in that final, winning that outing there in straight sets 6-3, 6-2, 6-3, you know, winning his 15th Grand Slam title. Gaurav, a pleasure having you here in the studios analyzing the game.
Thank you.
And, you know, helping us understand where things went right or wrong for either of the players.
It's been a pleasure being here.
Well, that's all we have time for in this edition. You know, we're going to be back again now as the second Grand Slam or the clay court season begins, and we look forward to the French Open and the season ahead. Thanks for watching. Bye-bye.